Here is a workflow that saves agents time and, more importantly, reduces the risk of missing something important before a contract goes to a client. When you are in a busy transaction period, 3 or 4 offers moving simultaneously, reviewing each purchase agreement thoroughly is the kind of task that gets compressed. You tell yourself you will do a quick pass, you spot the price and contingency dates, and you move on. The clauses you miss are the ones that come back later. In this video, I'll build a personalized contract review checklist in under 10 minutes using Claude. A structured 20-point checklist that covers the key categories of clauses you should verify before any agreement goes to your client or their attorney. Not a legal opinion. A professional workflow tool that flags what to look for so nothing gets missed under time pressure. Building this kind of checklist manually from scratch takes me an hour to 90 minutes. With this Claude workflow, it is 10 minutes, and the output is tailored to the specific type of transaction and state you fill in. I want to be especially clear about the disclaimer for this video because the topic is contracts. This workflow generates a review checklist, a list of things to look at, not legal advice and not a legal interpretation of any clause. In the US, contract interpretation is regulated by unauthorized practice of law rules that vary by state. In the UK, certain contract-related activities require FCA or SRA authorization. In Canada, provincial real estate councils and notary regulations apply. In Australia, legal practitioners are required for certain contract activities. The output of this workflow is a structured checklist for your professional review, not a substitute for attorney review. Any significant transaction warrants qualified legal review, and that disclaimer needs to be your standing practice regardless of what AI tool you use. Some links in the description are affiliate. Now the workflow. Here is the situation active buyer's agents and listing agents both know. When you are managing multiple transactions simultaneously, thorough contract review gets squeezed. You know the contingency dates, you know the price, you know the earnest money amount. Those are the numbers you are watching. The clauses that are harder to track are things like, what is the inspection objection deadline specifically? Is there a liquidated damages cap? What are the seller's disclosure obligations under this form? What is the financing contingency language? Are there any unusual addenda attached? What does the possession date say, and does it conflict with anything in the seller's other transaction? These are not obscure clauses. They are standard items that get glossed over when you are in a hurry. I missed an inspection objection deadline by 1 day on a transaction 2 years back because I was running 3 contracts at the same time and I was tracking the date in my head, not on a formal checklist. That 1 day cost me a client relationship. A structured checklist is the solution. The problem is building one that is specific to your transaction type takes time. So most agents reuse a generic version or just skip it. This prompt generates a customized one in minutes. Before you open Claude, you need 3 pieces of input. First, the transaction type: residential purchase, residential sale, condo, townhome, new construction. Different transaction types have different standard clause categories. Second, the state or country and whether you are using a standard form, like the State Association's Residential Purchase Agreement form or a custom brokerage form. If you are using a standard state form, name it, because Claude can often frame the checklist around the standard sections of that form type. Third, any specific complicating factors in this transaction: seller occupied beyond closing, financing contingency with unusual terms, inspection waiver offered, HOA involved. These specifics let the model customize the checklist instead of giving you the same generic 20 items every time. I keep a quick transaction brief in Google Docs for each deal, just a paragraph with these 3 things. It takes 2 minutes to write at the start of each transaction, and I reference it throughout. I will open Claude now and walk through the full prompt. Here is the full prompt. I will type it out so every element is visible. Role instruction: you are a real estate transaction coordinator helping a licensed real estate agent prepare a contract review checklist. This is a workflow tool, not legal advice. Generate a structured 20-point checklist of contract elements to verify before the agent presents or submits a residential purchase agreement. Then the transaction context block: transaction type residential purchase, state Colorado, standard form Colorado Real Estate Commission approved contract to buy and sell, representing the buyer, financing contingency included, seller occupied through closing plus 30 days, HOA applies. Then the output format instruction: format as a numbered checklist. Each item should have a 1-line description of what to check, a specific question or flag to answer, and a field for notes. Group items into 5 categories: financial terms, contingency dates and deadlines, property condition and disclosures, special terms and addenda, and closing logistics. Then the guardrail section. This is a workflow checklist, not a legal interpretation. Do not state what a clause means legally or how it would be enforced. Focus on what to verify and what questions to flag for attorney or broker review. That is the complete prompt. Running it now. The output is a 20-point checklist organized in 5 categories. Let me walk through what makes each category valuable. Financial terms covers purchase price, earnest money amount and timing, closing cost allocation, and any seller concessions. These are items agents check anyway, but having them on a formal list means you verify each one explicitly rather than assuming you reviewed the whole section. Contingency dates and deadlines is the most important category for avoiding missed deadlines. The Colorado contract form has specific deadline structure: inspection objection deadline, inspection resolution deadline, financing deadline, appraisal deadline. Each one gets its own checklist item with the question, what is the exact date, and is it calendared? Property condition and disclosures covers seller disclosure obligations, HOA document delivery, and condition items the seller is required to disclose. The checklist flags these as questions to verify, not as legal interpretations of what disclosure is required. That is your broker and their attorney's territory. Special terms and addenda is critical in any transaction that has add-ons. The model flags addenda as a verify and read category because addenda often contain deadline or condition language that contradicts or modifies the base contract. And closing logistics covers possession date, proration items, and any seller rent-back terms. I was going to use a generic checklist template I found online for this demo, but when I ran that through Claude's comparison, it pointed out that the generic version did not have HOA document delivery as a separate item, which is a specific Colorado requirement. The transaction-specific prompt generates a checklist that actually matches the form you are using. Once the checklist is generated, I copy it into a Google Doc template that has my brokerage header and a transaction details block at the top, property address, transaction parties, my client's name, offer date. I save that as a template and duplicate it for each new transaction. The model generates the checklist once for a given form type and state combination. You do not need to regenerate it every transaction if you are always working with the same form. I have one version for Colorado buyer-side residential, one for Colorado seller-side residential, and one for condo transactions. Each took about 10 minutes to generate and review, and they are permanent workflow tools I reuse. A transaction coordinator I work with on referrals reviewed one of these checklists and pointed out that the HOA section should explicitly include the question about special assessments pending. That was not in the initial output. The Claude output gives you a strong baseline. Your professional review and anyone you work with regularly will add the local nuances. Once you have added those nuances back to the template, you have a genuinely customized tool. Time from this session: filling in the transaction context block, 2 minutes. Typing the prompt and running Claude, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Reading the output and making 2 edits to add local items, for minutes and 20 seconds. Copying to Google Docs and formatting, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Total, 12 minutes. Building the same checklist manually, researching the form sections, writing 20 items with their verification questions and note fields, formatting it, was 90 minutes to 2 hours, and I did it differently every time depending on how much I remembered from the last transaction. The structured output here is consistent, reusable, and tailored to the actual form type and state you work in. And the real value is not just the time. It is the fact that a formal checklist means you actually verify each item, rather than doing a mental scan that misses items 7 and 12 because you were thinking about the client call you have in 30 minutes. The full prompt is in the description. Copy it, fill in your state, form type, and transaction specifics, and you have a checklist in 10 minutes. I also linked a Google Docs template with a 5-category structure pre-built so you can paste directly. The free prompt pack includes this checklist prompt plus 9 others for transaction and admin workflows. Subscribe for 3 AI workflows per week for real estate agents. Next video, I am covering a discovery question generator for buyer consultations, using ChatGPT to build a 30-question intake sheet tailored to a specific buyer profile in about 8 minutes. See you then.